The Yellow Brick Road. This video does not reflect the actual views of real people. These are actors playing a role to entertain audiences. No persons or animals were harmed in the making of this video. Gosh, I love YouTube and I love Google.
Welcome to the Yellow Brick Road. I'm Jordan. There's no James here today. Well, he might pop in at some point. But it's time for election madness. Can't wait. Now, I don't know much about all the particular political stories that are happening. I have some idea of it. But I started this video basically to hear from other people. And when it comes to topics like this, I want to hear what people think. Well, mainly for debating them on their points, because they're usually missing something with their answers. Another reason I'm watching this is because I expect some crazy shit to happen. Meaning, very possible that Republicans dominate this whole thing, the House and Senate, and then they see the reactions from the Democrats. Right? I've been debating these things on Twitter. There's still people that are heavily pro Clinton still. They can't get over the fact that she lost. And I'm curious what will happen if the bubble bursts and what will be people's reactions to this. So what I have up is the CBS News coverage of the election and all that shit. Hopefully they don't kick me off of YouTube for doing this, but small channel, who the fuck is watching anyways. So like I said, any and all comments, whether it's after the video is posted and people want to leave comments in the comment section, or hopefully what I'm hoping for is live chats. Right. This isn't going to be like a philosophy channel that picks sides for voting like Stefan Molyneux. He doesn't say vote red, but he says it without saying it. And it's like, because race and intelligence, that's why. Genetics and intelligence. And women are inferior to men. They should be just raising children. That's their specialty. Yeah, so, looks like we got some action here.
Public health and safety.
Arizonans are very worried that they will lose coverage for those with pre-existing health conditions.
What we were trying to do is make sure that premiums come down for everybody, that there's options for everyone to be able to get access to affordable, available care.
No wall is going to solve legitimate.
Notice when they say available care.
But smart policy will.
Congressman O'Rourke not only opposes a wall, but he has said we have too many fences and walls already on the border. He wants to tear down the ones we have.
Those are just a few of the issues on the ballot tonight in some of the country's most contested
if you watch a Jimmy
Senate
Dore,
races.
you'll notice when he
Incumbent
says,
Republican Senator Dean Heller of Nevada is trying to fend off Democratic
keywords
challenger
like
Jackie
affordable
Rosen.
care.
Recent polls show Rosen with a slight
Medicare
lead
for
over
all
the
covers
embattled
that.
senator. In Arizona, a pair of congresswomen, Republican
for
Martha
you.
McSally
That
and
sounds like
Democrat
the
Kirsten
moral
Sinema
choice
are
for me.
competing for the seat being left open
Not that
by
I vote or
retiring
anything,
Republican
but
Senator
that
Jeff
seems
Flake.
blatantly obvious.
And in Texas, El Paso Congressman Congressman Beto O'Rourke hopes to be the first Democrat to win a statewide race in Texas since 1994. He's running against Republican Senator and former presidential candidate Ted Cruz. Joining me now is Dallas Morning News political writer Gromer Jeffers, political analyst for our Las Vegas affiliate KLAS Steve Sebelius, and Dennis Welch is the political editor for our Phoenix affiliate. Welcome to you all. Gromer, let's start with you and Texas. What is at stake in this Texas Senate race?
Wow, Elaine, so much. Not only are you talking about Ted Cruz, a former presidential candidate, as you mentioned, in a tough fight, probably a fight of his career, but this race will be a barometer on whether Texas is closer to turning purple, becoming a battleground state, because if Beto O'Rourke wins, wow, I mean, that's history in itself. But let's say he finishes close within 5 points, 6 points. That means that Democrats have hope of in the next couple of cycles or so really making this a competitive state. So the stakes are high here in Texas.
Let's turn next to Nevada. And Steve, how is President Trump factoring into this race?
Well, Elaine, surprisingly for Dean Heller, who eschewed President Trump in 2016, they have become best buddies. President Trump has even said that he loves Dean Heller, so he's played a very big role in Dean Heller's campaign, notwithstanding the fact that the Heller campaign reportedly asked the president not to make a visit toward the end of the campaign in the last couple of days here. Jackie Rosen has targeted Dean Heller for the #1 thing that he supported President Trump on, which was the health care repeal. Although Dean Heller didn't support the president's preferred version, he found his way to vote for one of the versions of health care repeal after getting I guess we call it a slight nudge from President Trump.
And Dennis, where you are, what are the results of that race going to show us about the future of politics there in Arizona?
I think, a lot like Texas, I think, when you look back in 2016, Donald Trump only won this state by a couple of points, about 3 points. Now, if Kyrsten Sinema, a Democrat, she's able to win this, it shows that, Arizona, again, is a purple state. It is a battleground state. It's a state that a lot of presidential candidates should be paying attention to. Again, we have not elected a Democratic senator in Arizona since 1988. And currently, right now, every statewide office here in Arizona, including the 2 Senate seats, that's 13 total seats here of elected officials, all belong to Republicans right now. A win by Kyrsten Sinema would drastically change that perception of Arizona.
All right, gentlemen, I have a question here from Ed O'Keefe. Ed, go ahead.
Guys, it's actually for all three of you, because if Democrats have any hope of making a play for the Senate tonight, they basically have to win all 3 of your states. So quickly tell our viewers, what would the Democrat have to do in your state tonight in order to win? Who do they have to get out to vote? Where do they have to do it? Gromer, let's start with you.
Well, 2 things. Base Democrats have to come out in higher numbers, but suburban women in the suburbs and in the urban areas around Dallas, Houston, San Antonio, they have to come out for Beto O'Rourke in order for him to have a chance. And the turnout has to be high, dramatically high, not between 6 and 7 million.
He means minorities and women.
8.5 million. Then he has a shot of winning.
And Gromer, real quick, do they have a reason to believe that's happening today?
Turnout is, people are voting, yes. So turnout is high. That's the first component. Will it get to over 8 million? We'll see. But they're encouraged, and Republicans are a little worried because the higher the turnout, the better the chances are for Democrats.
And where is he finding most of that support?
Ted Cruz is going to lose this shit.
Which of the big cities?
But
the big
I think
cities,
the majority will still
he's
be
finding
red
strong
states.
support in the big cities, but also there are hidden pockets in these urban areas.
The House and
Collin
whatever
County,
else bullshit.
strong Republican county in the Dallas area, he's holding his own
Beto
there.
O'Rourke
Tarrant County in the
Texas.
Fort Worth area. Those are voters that are, he's 50-50, there with Ted Cruz in some of those areas. That's a good indicator that he is in this race.
Steve, in Las Vegas, I know when you talk to Democrats out there, they say the Harry Reid turnout machine still exists and appears to be operating well today. Is that what you're hearing? And what is the Harry Reid turnout machine that gets Democrats elected?
Yeah, the Harry Reid turnout machine is not a matter of fiction. It's a real thing, and it does appear to be working, especially in early voting. We had a record turnout for early voting in a midterm election in the history of Nevada. There are lines at polling places today, so it looks like that high turnout is continuing apace. In order to win, Jackie Rosen is going to have to run up the numbers big in Clark County. That's the Reed turnout machine playbook. And try to keep it as even as possible in Washoe County, where Reno is located. At last report, they were about 1%. Democrats had about a 1% lead in Reno. That's probably going to shift as the day goes on. But if she can keep it as close in Reno and drive up the turnout big in Clark County, then she can win with those numbers.
And Dennis, in Arizona, what does Kyrsten Sinema have to do?
Again, she has got to turn out her base supporters again, and then she's also got to get those independents as well as those moderate Republicans, particularly moderate Republican women, to kind of cross over and start voting for her. And there is evidence that that might be happening, because if you look over at the state governor's race right now, the Governor Doug Ducey, winning that race by big numbers. That is a statewide race, as is this Senate race. And you look at the Senate race, and this is neck and neck. So there is some evidence that that is happening. Now, as far as overall turnout, we're seeing big turnout here in Arizona. 1.6 million early ballots have already been cast. That has exceeded the 2014 total of 1.5 million already. Now, state officials are telling me right now we could see 2.2 million ballots cast at the end of this election, and that is approaching presidential numbers. Back in 2008, 2012, 2.3 million ballots were cast in both of those elections, and in 2016 there were about 2.6 million. So we are seeing a lot of those pieces falling in place right now for Kyrsten Sinema.
One of the issues for McSally in all this was the fact that she had been somebody concerned about and not necessarily a supporter of the president back in 2016, but has now come to embrace him. Is there any reason to believe we'll see suppressed Republican turnout, especially among those diehard conservatives in the Phoenix area, who say, nope, she hasn't been with him since the start, therefore she doesn't get my vote?
Well, I think, you know, you kind of look at how the campaigns are acting, that they are definitely worried about that. Republicans have been going around, they've been going around to Republican districts and making their final campaign pitches to those people. They were up in rural Arizona all day yesterday, wrapping up their campaigns in Prescott, Arizona. Again, another Republican stronghold. So what they are trying to do is crank up the base, get them out there. That tells you a lot about their actions, what they're really worried about with that. Coincidentally, you know, Kyrsten Sinema spent the day down in Tucson by herself. She's not campaigning with anybody. She feels a little bit more comfortable at this time.
Gromer, let me ask you, there's a clip I'd like to play from Congressman O'Rourke after he cast his vote this morning. Let's listen to that.
Are you expecting to win?
Yes. So grateful to all these first-time voters who are going to decide this election. Voting amongst those 18 to 29 is up 500% in Texas from the last midterm election. I can't count how many people have come up and said this is the first election that they will vote in.
So nearly all the polling in this race has shown Senator Cruz in the lead. Is it possible, Gromer, that those polls are perhaps missing some of those first-time voters that O'Rourke mentioned?
Absolutely, Elaine. I talked to Congressman O'Rourke yesterday. There are all sorts of new voters in the process and voters who are not primary voters. I mean, it could be up to 40% after tonight that voters in this process are voters that can't be identified by either party, and the polls didn't really touch. So he's depending on that. He's banking on the fact that at some point, you know, these new voters, these voters that the parties haven't identified will be in his favor.
Dennis, no matter who wins Arizona's Senate race, she will be the state's first ever female senator. What will that mean for Arizonans?
Well, you know, I got to tell you this. I mean, obviously that would be historic, but this is a state that has seen a lot of female candidates elected to statewide office. I mean, we've had a number of female governors and secretaries of states and many other offices out there. Obviously, it's historic to have the first female there, but here in Arizona, you know, voters here, they like electing women to statewide offices.
All right, Steve, let me ask you, so Senator Heller is the only Republican incumbent senator running in a state that Hillary Clinton won in 2016. How critical is it to both parties to win this race?
Well, has nothing to do with issues, especially with what's going on with some of the other races.
This all sounds like sports talk
race, and Republicans believe it's essential for them to hold on to it as well. They have been making that argument in their public appearances and certainly in their television advertising. There's a lot of scaremongering going on, conflating Jackie Rosen with Nancy Pelosi. In fact, one ad even transposed their last names and said there's really no difference between them, notwithstanding the fact that Nancy Pelosi is a member of the House and Jackie Rosen's running to be a member of the Senate. So they are pulling out all the stops in this race to make sure that stays in Republican hands.
All right, Gromer Jeffers, Steve Sebelius, and Dennis Welch, thanks to you all. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Elaine.
Absolutely.
Coming up, the president addresses the question many have been asking.
And then they tell you, he's got the greatest economy. Why is he talking about the border?
Ahead, we'll break down the president's closing arguments and why some in his party wished it could have been different. We'll have a live report from the White House when we return. You're watching CBSN's Election Night coverage.
So as you can tell, no, I haven't heard anything about any issues. Just a lot of political strategy games. I might have heard something about healthcare, but you know, I've heard someone, they put it in the context of a platform to run on rather than, okay, what's up with this issue? See if I find something else. I definitely want to watch these.
This is liar Tom Perez, DNC chair. On November 2nd, he tweeted out, "Our Democratic candidates reflect the diversity of our nation. They're passionate about people. They'll work tirelessly to unite Americans under our shared hopes." Which I responded, "I'm confused how your Democratic leaders will work tirelessly to unite Americans when other leaders in your party are advocating kicking people on the other side and getting in our faces. This is just another lie from the Democrats."
You see what's dangerous about these group fucking team playing things? You need to save your world by voting for this guy. This guy you don't know anything about him. All you heard is he's Republican. You've heard some issues, but both sides sound shitty to me. If you thought about them, they're both probably shitty as fuck. But that's not the point, is it? It's about whose team wins.
Need proof? Here it is.
I'm angry. Yes, I am outraged. Yes, I have thought an awful lot about blowing up the White House.
Frightened a lot of people. And of course, the lying president said that I had threatened all of his constituents. I did not threaten his constituents, his supporters. I do that all the time, but I didn't do it that time.
But Michelle says that, when they go low, we go high. No. When they go low, we kick them.
And if there's some collateral damage for some others who do not share our view, well, so be it.
Because I'm throwing that piece of against the wall till it sticks.
He always ask me, don't I wish I were debating him? No, I wish we were in high school, I could take him behind the gym. That's what I wish.
He's stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions. Who would it be? Does one of us have to come out alive?
He's so blatantly stupid. He's a punk. He's a dog. He's a pig. He's a con, a bullshit artist, a mutt. Talks how he wants to punch people in the face. Well, I'd like to punch him in the face.
Is fight in Congress, fight in the courts, fight in the street.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about. That's why I believe if we are fortunate enough to win back the House and/or the Senate, that's when civility can start again.
I said, no. I said, if we were in high school, I'd take you behind the gym and beat the hell out of him.
We will, as per Chief Jim Hopper, punch some people in the face.
Their idea is, look, nonviolence hasn't worked, and we are going to try to stop this.
You get out and you create a crowd, and you push back on them, and you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
And I might be all right with all the, you know, the symbolism, the whatchamacallit, protesting. Yeah, but you have to have a solid idea backing you. You guys have nothingness there. It's like an empty shell. You're shooting, you know, empty bullets at an army of people. Nothing's landing, nothing's firing. It's just, we can see that there's nothing there. That's why your arguments are dismantled so easily. From people like me, who's impartial, right? I'm not for Trump, I'm not for Republicans. I don't vote right no matter what. I don't vote right to save America. But I can dismantle your arguments. Probably do the same to the other side, but they at least have some sort of egotistical shield there. They don't just, you know, deny everything else as not existent. Like, no, that's not real, no. You need to put together an argument. Otherwise, you end up with violence, right? You ever see like a teenager or a child who has no argument, but they're just upset about something, but they have no argument for it, and it goes from yelling and screaming to physical altercation because they can't use their words to do it. That's what I think would happen, which is why I'm going to pay attention to this election thing. Not because I'm like, yay, vote. It's because I sort of want to see how people react, regardless of which team wins. Yes, there are teams. There are two fucking teams that exist. We're going to find the right answer in righteousness by playing on teams instead of judging individuals as they are. That's the world we live in.
Democracy is under siege. People need to start taking to the streets. This is a dictator. We need a revolution.
See? There's no argument there. It's just, this guy's bad. This guy's really bad. We have to go out into the streets. So if you had an argument, you'd be making the other team look silly with your words. And since you haven't developed an argument, like, you've let a guy who's impartial develop a better argument for your side than you do. At least your core ideas of your team. You got to formulate words to communicate with other people. You can't just yell and scream at them.
Look as his character is stabbed to death. And there's no mistaking the Trump connection.
That's it right there, pulling up.
If tomorrow all the things were gone, I'd work for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. Thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be
You let those guys have a better argument than you. That's all I'm saying. Yeah, let's try this. No way I'm playing that HBO shit. All right, here you go. Again, I have no idea who these channels are. They seems like just normal people. Let's just watch the difference in arguments here.
What you're seeing and what you're reading is not what's happening.
How can the United States government lose 1,500 children?
Now to a dire warning about climate change.
I hope the American people can see through this sham.
But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides.
Don't do anything
They
wrong.
expected to hit triple digits.
People are suffering and we do nothing to help it.
It's so easy to ask or wonder, what difference can my vote make? We are seeing that if we come together, all of our voices can rise up and actually be heard. And that's one of the reasons I'm still hopeful.
That's not an argument. It's cool dancing, I guess, and artwork. But you need a logical argument behind it. Otherwise, people aren't going to give it the time of day. Yeah. As far as people who are Obama voters and then switch to Trump voters.
The solution is to find other people who are passionate and work in ways to empower yourself and empower others for political change making.
Every single policy is influencing your personal life in some way. And so it is important that you have your voice heard.
Yeah. But if you relegate your voice to one day where you vote every 2 or 4 years, it's like, it's more like a whisper than a voice.
We are up against an organized opposition, and the most organized side wins.
Shouldn't it be the better argument wins, right? If one side says we need to blow up these people and the other side says we shouldn't, then there's a moral argument. And that's what politics is about, correct? It's meant to flesh out our moral ideas to find the best one, not which team looks cooler or dresses better or in some fantasy way represents, like, you hear words like diversity and things like that. It should be whoever has the best argument. And I should step back and say that it doesn't always have to be purely logical, right? Someone could just simply be saying killing is wrong. That's the full extent of their argument. And I'm like, oh, they're right. They may not have the words for it, but these guys, they don't have the words or the actions. No, it doesn't make sense either way. It's just an empty shell. You can't be so angry with Trump and Trump voters and then support Hillary Clinton at the same time. They don't go together. It leaves your actions empty, right? You gotta have something solid behind you.
Every vote is a message that the people won't stand for bigotry and racism.
That's the way it should be, but your arguments don't say that. Or your actions don't say that. Right? Plus, things like racism and bigotry, what are those? That sounds like just ignorance. So go combat ignorance collectively as a whole. Not as a team, but like all of ignorance and all of corruption. Go fight those things. Or stay where we're at and keep cycling through the nonsense. Up to you.
And corruption.
Don't sell yourself short. What you do is important, and you have a voice.
Yeah, you should be using it every day.
It's not always about the lesser of two evils. It's about having a personal vision of what you want the country to look like and acting on it.
Even that, it's like, what, you want the country to look away as opposed to be a certain way, right? That's the argument. That's where the right argues against you, saying you want forced diversity. It's an empty, poor argument. You need something righteous behind it.
I love bringing people into the process. The people running for office work for you, and if you're unhappy with the way things are going, you let them know, or you vote them out.
With who? Who's replacing them? That's what I want to know. Levi says Dems are gonna take control of the House. That's for sure. I don't know because during the 2016 election, all the polls were saying Hillary's gonna win, except for like I believe this one group said Trump was gonna win. And the same thing's happening with the polls now. They're all saying Democrats, and this one group that picked Trump last time is picking Republican again. So I have no idea, but I guess we'll find out in not too long. As soon as I hear that the results are coming in, then I will switch to like a news broadcast. But for now, I'm just shitting on left and right. They're like corporate morality to me. They're branding and selling things. They're not really being that thing. That's just the way it seems. See how they're selling stuff? It's like a dance crew and all that. Nothing to do with the idea that they're fighting. They say corruption, but what corruption are you talking about? You need to make an argument so it's understood. And either that or have such a righteous answer to where it becomes undeniable. Like, don't kill, right? That's an obvious argument, and it can have a foundation behind it. It can have an action of, I don't kill people. But when you say blanket terms like corruption, without it really explaining that, it turns into this, an advertisement. With pop music. It's called treating people like children, basically. Especially, they're definitely focusing on the youth with this one. It's like vote for us, and it's rainbows and sunshine. But, you know, Obama didn't escalate 2 wars to 7 or 8. He just, you know, it was all Bush's fault somehow. He had no part in that, you know. This literally looks like Brave New World. Just saying.
It's been really exciting just to see the change that I can make, even in the small things that I'm doing.
Like what?
Or when I see my friends asking me, like, what can I do? It's been something that's really encouraging, and it gives me hope.
What is it?
Blue wave is not just one big wave, but it's little drops. It's people making small effort, and it's going to make a big difference in November.
What ideas are you fighting for? Or is it just vote against Trump? It's blatant advertisement. They even use the tagline, lesser of two evils. It's not about that anymore. Like, wait, so you were into that in the first place? This has never been about a moral decision?
Never give up, never give up. Never give up, never give up, no.
Hey, Ash, I should almost show you. I should show you what these guys are up against. This is what those guys would have to argue with. And it's like, you're done for. He's gonna murder you. In a debate, figuratively speaking.
All right, I think we are live. Just let me know if we are, my friends. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Can you hear me? Hello, hello, hello. Yes, looks like we're live. All right. Please let me know if the sound levels are good, and let me know if it is good, just to make it work. Very nice to see you all, and we are going to dive straight into election 2018. First, of course, I must talk about myself. I'm trying to be relatable, not narcissistic, but you know, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It is strange for me, my friends, very strange, to care about elections, to have a side in the race, to have a dog in the fight, as they say, and ooh-wee, it's very, very strange. And
I could pick this guy apart too, but it's so noticeable that Stefan Molyneux will annihilate these other guys in an argument, and he usually does. That's why his platform has risen in such a way. That's why Ben Shapiro's has risen in a certain way. It's because they get to argue against those ideas of people just dancing in a warehouse with pop music playing. That's who they get to argue against. And it's like, it's easy pickings.
I'm just saying that right up front. Obviously, I'm hoping for Republican victories, and that is necessary but not sufficient to save the country, and since America is kind of the keystone of the arch.
It's not necessary. It's about the ideas themselves. And this guy has a decent argument and definition of morality, but the way he uses it leaves it empty into just logical gymnastics, right? Logic is relative and subjective, And he uses that to mental gymnastic his way to, well, that's why race and intelligence is so important, and shit like that. So, yeah, I consider his arguments pretty empty too in a fullness sense of it, but it has some form of logical understanding behind it too. Right? It doesn't just leave you with nothing.
The West at the moment, to save the West, requires saving America. And saving America requires keeping the Democrats as far away from the levers of power as inhumanly possible. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my thoughts. I want to...
Hey, Stefan, what if I was a Democrat? Right? It's just a team name label. So I don't know. I get why you're saying that. It's because you want people to vote for your team. But that sounds intellectually dishonest to say, the Democrats. Like, look at individuals, look at their ideas, and call out the ideas. I'm sure there's Republicans with pretty bad ideas too. But the most important thing is stopping the migrants. That's the most important thing in human history. Stop the migrants, because then it'll crash the economy, and money's everything, and free market, and Ayn Rand.
Take your questions and have a chat about how you guys are doing, particularly, of course, my friends in America, because, boy, it's quite a... don't worry, I'm not going to sing. Don't panic, but I posted earlier today from Les Mis the song One Day More, another day, another destiny, another in this never-ending road to Calvary, and one day more, tomorrow is the day we've all been waiting for. It's Judgment Day, and it is a very powerful thing. So,
again, instilling some sort of fear or importance to this to get people to vote for his team. His team that he won't claim as his team, but he says vote Republican, straight up. That doesn't make any sense.
There's a couple of things that I want you guys to do. It's just me sitting in a studio telling you guys what I want you to do, but I want you to do them anyway. So, and hold off on the super chats if you can. I would really appreciate that. I appreciate the support. freedomainradio.com/donate is where you can also go, of course. But I wanted to talk about some of the major differences between the parties, because I want to at least get across my ideas about what's majorly different between the left and the right, as traditionally understood. Lots of overlap and lots of rhinos and all of that, and lots of communists posing as democratic socialists. But I wanted to go through a couple of the major differences between the parties. And
let me guess, one team's for freedom and the other team's for enslavement. Because vote red no matter what.
Figure out how to get this stuff across to people is so important. So, one thing that immature people are not very good at is watching suffering and knowing it's for a greater cause, right? And watching suffering and knowing it's for a greater cause. And this immaturity seems to me all over the left. Like, you see a poor person, it's like, oh, let's give that person money. You see it.
You better explain this very, very well and very carefully. Actually, you probably don't have to, because, you know, your audience will believe whatever you say anyways. But if you were in a room with someone who doesn't just buy into anything you say, you better carefully explain this one.
A sick person is like, oh, they must get health care no matter what. And you see a sad person, it's, we got to do whatever we can to make them happy. Now, that's not a moral.
Oh. How'd you make that leap? Someone's sad, you can't make them happy. If you think the other side, well, the other side's argument is pretty, like, shallow. We just watched a dance video, and that was them telling people to vote blue. It's like, wow, you played a pop music and a dance video. You didn't make an argument at all. Which is why I was like, this guy will probably annihilate you in a debate. But if you due to research, you can annihilate him in a debate. You see, okay, you have a sick person, right? It's like, oh, we should help this sick person. There's a difference between that and this guy's sad. Let's make him happy. Those are two completely different things. And one has, oh, I'd almost say both are a necessity of life, but it's not like your character goes down because you get sick, right? It's like, oh, I got measles, man. I'm gonna go shoot this mall up now, right? Your character doesn't go down because you're physically sick. It's like, oh, we should look after him because he's physically sick. If someone's sad, that's when the ripples can happen. And we can't cure sadness. I'm sure there's people that try with pills and stuff like that. That actually might exacerbate the fucking sadness.
That's debatable.
It might. But those are things where a person's going to have to learn how to deal with their sadness, because we can't do that for them. But we can. A doctor can help a broken bone.
Yeah. Again, that's the thing that's on the surface.
Morality might even demand you to help. But whatever.
Thing. Generally what happens is people feel very unhappy when they see someone suffering and they want to eliminate and alleviate that suffering. They don't fundamentally care about the other person's suffering. What they care about...
That's a make-believe answer.
Wait.
You just made that up.
Play it again? Play it? No, not everyone.
Is their own suffering, right? Which is that I suffer when I see someone sad, therefore I'm going to do everything in my power to make sad people happy, not because I think it's good for them, not because I care about their long-term interests, but simply because.
Hold on. He's saying this for everybody?
And it sounds like it.
This is ridiculous.
But he's also conflating someone being sick of polio and someone having a down day. Like, I'm sad versus, dude, I can't walk.
Who is this guy? Oh, he's a philosopher.
Yes.
Oh. Look at that. He's trying to figure out what he's going to say next.
I earlier called these guys corporate philosophers.
These guys?
Yeah.
I don't call them real philosophers.
Did I call them that? Maybe.
It's
It's
like a new word I invented, or phrase, a pseudo-philosopher.
I called people that either say vote red or vote blue as they're corporate moralists. They're trying to sell you morality. They're not being it.
I feel sad when I watch them. And that's really, really, this ability to recognize and process suffering is really, really important. So the question is, why has Obamacare not been repealed and replaced as the Republicans promised to do? And the answer, I think, is fairly simple.
All right. Fuck this guy for now. Results are starting to come in, I believe.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll. Unfortunately, I'm seeing some people that are just voted. It's like, fuck.
Yeah.
I'm seeing it everywhere. There's nothing wrong with it.
Most of them on the Democratic side, many of them having breezed through their primaries. And the other question now is, what does that mean by way of turnout among female voters? And a lot of the controversy around the confirmation of Brett Kavanaugh amid the allegations of sexual misconduct, that raised questions as to whether that might boost turnout among women who have typically, of course, particularly single women, gravitated toward Democrats. The other key part of this vote to watch which is suburban women who in 2016 did keep largely in line with Republicans, but they kind of held their nose and voted for Trump. Have they now seen his temperament has not changed, and does that mean that they're going to break away with him today? Those are some of the big trends that we're watching.
So exit polling shows that 8 in 10 say electing more women to Congress is important. But Joel, even if you have many of these female candidates winning, how much of a dent is that really going to make when it comes to those numbers in Congress?
Well, listen, the energy really is what it's all about, right? You know, you look at just some of the historic numbers that have been reached, not just with the candidates that are on the ballot today, but those who are running. I mean, this has been an organizing principle for the Democratic Party this cycle. And I think we've seen it reflected in really strong women candidates in places like Arizona, not just on the Democratic side, but the Republican side. Stacey Abrams in Georgia, but probably the strongest Democrat to run statewide in Georgia in a long time. I think that the party is starting to realize this is not just something we should just kind of highlight as a extra feature, but really
the only results I got so
far as something that's a main stool of the party and a main focal point of the party now. And so I think that from this point forward, you'll see that reflected in the type of candidates the Democrats look for.
So speaking of first, Nevada could have the first ever women majority state legislature. And Caitlin, you were with us when we traveled for Red and Blue to Nevada. Tell us what you found there on this issue.
According to the New York Times,
we saw that Democratic candidates were very much looking at these women voters, as a strength, as a constituency that could help flip some of these congressional districts, but also potentially change the legislature to a majority run. Now, experts that we talked to in the state said that that is that's a very ambitious goal there, and that at this point it does not seem the likely.
President Donald Trump.
He's come to Texas, a longtime Republican stronghold,
vote for Ted Cruz
to shore up support in a state where Democrats seem to be gaining ground.
Ted's opponent in this race is a stone-cold phony. Beto O'Rourke in this state is running to the left of Elizabeth Warren, to the left of Bernie Sanders, and the state of Texas is not going to stand for it.
Here, the Senate race between Cruz and rising Democratic star Beto O'Rourke is so consequential and surprisingly close.
We will find enough common ground to make things better.
We are going to win this race.
Texas is a deeply red state, but it is changing and changing fast. It sits there as a big red target.
They actually have a green demographic on.
That if they can start to flip Texas, it changes the entire nationwide electoral map.
With the midterm election just weeks away, we traveled to the Lone Star State to go behind the scenes with both campaigns as they race to the finish line. Are you going to have any energy? Front and center in this border state, immigration.
What if we, the people of Texas, were to rewrite, for example, our immigration laws in our own image, from our own experiences?
Do we want to secure the border and keep our communities and our families safe?
In recent days, Trump announced that he is considering militarization of the border. Cruz, who has had a stronghold on his Senate seat since 2013, towing the line.
Yes or no? Do you support militarizing the border?
You know, militarize is a politically charged word. We need to deploy whatever law enforcement resources are necessary.
So that's a yes.
To prevent crossing the border. So that means, listen, if you've got a caravan of thousands of people pledging to violate the laws and cross here illegally, of course we should do whatever's necessary.
Congressman O'Rourke sees things differently. He grew up in the border town of El Paso and speaks fluent Spanish.
You say you want to secure the borders. Can you do that without a wall? Can you do that without militarizing the border?
So we don't need a wall, to answer your question. We don't need to militarize the border. If things are so desperate in Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, that someone would risk their lives to come here, then what can we do to improve conditions there?
His stance on immigration is not the only thing going against the grain
God.
in this state that's been red for decades.
Why are these Syrian refugees coming here? Well, we bombed the shit out of their country. That's why.
Pro-choice, you're pro-pot.
I may characterize the positions you just described a little bit differently, but what I'll tell you is that in each of them I found the common ground in the state of Texas. These are human values, American values, Texan values.
But are they too progressive for Texas?
No.
O'Rourke's campaign strategy is to try to appeal to the common man. He has made an effort to travel to every county in the state.
Just human beings, real people making this happen.
And expanded his brand nationally through social media, live streaming everything. And it's worked. He's raised a record $38 million in the last 3 months.
So we're backstage getting ready to talk to the man that has captivated not only Texas, but the entire country. So how do you translate the momentum into turnout?
So you show up everywhere. We have one of the most simple, obvious strategies that I've seen employed in a modern campaign. We just literally show up everywhere all the time for everyone.
Cruz has opened up a bit of a wider lead, but everyone attached to the campaign knows it is a potentially soft lead.
For Senator Ted Cruz, his campaign strategy, deeply Texas.
So this is a legitimate stockyard.
He's like a movie character, like politician.
Getting ready to witness
so
this
funny.
Ted Cruz rally.
He'll just like start wearing cowboy
Voting
hats.
because
This is
of
Texas,
his
man.
record. He fought for
You
our
from
religious
here?
liberty, our Second Amendment right.
One of his super supporters, Maggie Wright, has followed Cruz for years, even moving to Iowa during his presidential run.
Is there a more fanatical supporter of Ted Cruz than you?
No, for my 50th wedding anniversary, my husband asked me what I wanted, and
Nah,
I'm
he
scared
won't
to know what
retire.
you said. I want Ted Cruz for
He's on
president.
TV now, so.
But he lost that
What?
race, and now, to the
She's
surprise
on
of
TV.
many, he's aligning himself
We
with
got
the
her name
man
and
who
everything.
won.
I have been
So now he
proud
will
to work
support her.
hand in hand with President Trump.
You guys have said some really reprehensible things about one another.
This man is a pathological liar.
Lion Ted Cruz, Lion Ted.
Donald, you're a sniveling coward and leave Heidi the hell alone.
Are those things not true anymore?
Look, I have no interest in revisiting the comments of 2016.
You've moved on.
I've got a job to do, and my job is forward-looking.
Mr. President.
And just today, the president cozying up as well.
He's not Lion Ted anymore. He's beautiful Ted. He's Texas. I call him Texas Ted.
Is he your friend? Is he your foe? How do you describe the relationship?
He's the president, and he's the president. I work with the president in delivering on our promises.
Cruz touts his track record to galvanize the vote.
They need to go out and vote.
Texas is booming, the economy is going great, and yet my opponent, Beto O'Rourke, what does he want to do? Higher taxes, higher regulation, go back to the Obama economy stagnation. That would be really bad for the state of Texas.
Last week, his
What else is
opponent
bad?
also took
Homeless
a page
people.
out of Donald
What do
Trump's
you do about
playbook,
that?
even though O'Rourke has vowed
Well, the
to
free
run
market
a positive
and-
campaign.
Yeah, okay.
He's dishonest.
Get
That's why
out.
the president called him Lying Ted, and it's why the
How much you
nickname
making?
stuck, because
Haven't you
it's
heard
true.
Stephen
That
Miller?
wasn't the best
How many
phrase for
corporate
me to
donors?
use.
Sometimes it's good to
something
lift
that
them
leapt to
suffer.
mind
How many
as
corporate-
he began the
Fuck
debate
outta here.
with another
fake-ass
but there you go.
philosopher. Fuck outta here, man.
But, you know, I'm going to do my best to stay
Anyway.
focused on the future.
And part of that focus is on attracting minority voters.
I look at Beto O'Rourke, and it seems like he has
Say the leaders of the free market are the smartest ones.
Here's the thing to watch.
That's how they got that.
He has
That's
a fake
smart.
accent.
As a first-generation
Seriously.
Mexican American now, a mother and a
What
teacher,
is this?
he stands for the values that I stand for.
The idea that Texas is ripe for the picking, it is powered by the growing minority population, the growing young voter population. It is almost inevitable that Texas ultimately turns blue. The question is, did Beto O'Rourke find this moment?
But this race is still up for grabs, and in the current political climate, not everyone is voting down party lines.
You all classify yourself as evangelical.
Yes.
How many of you plan on voting for Ted Cruz? Crickets. How many of you plan on voting for Beto O'Rourke?
And for most of these women, this is the first time they'll be voting for a Democrat.
For so long, the foregone conclusion
Look at
is
this.
that the Republicans would get the evangelical vote.
Look what's in the center of the
I think
table.
what we've seen happening is the systematic oppression of people of color, of people
That's
who
their
are seeking
go-to
asylum,
argument.
of refugees, of
I'm like
women.
fuming.
And it feels like a lot of that is coming from the Republican
Hey
Party
guys, what
at
do
this
you,
point.
I'm
What has
gonna
Beto
bring
done
it
to
back
earn your
every
vote?
time.
He's given
Hey
me
guys,
a
what are you gonna
broader
do about the
option.
wars in
He has said,
other parts of the
I'm going to
country?"
work on both sides. He said, I'm not running like for the Democratic Party. I'm running for the people.
Cruz's supporters see their votes as value-based
You guys
too.
gonna ask to see the corporate donors?
Big fans of Ted Cruz, everything he stands
You're a
for.
fan.
And I think the
Get
less
out.
government
There's no room for that.
intervention, the
He
better.
just admitted it.
Sticking with
Oh
our
my
conservative
God, what the fuck is
values
that?
and supporting Ted Cruz all the way.
With early voting
Values.
beginning
What are
today,
values?
the stakes are only getting higher
Oh, you
as we
don't
wait to
know.
find out if this red state will turn blue.
is
For
unreal.
Nightline, I'm Paula Ferris in Dallas.
You know, just when I thought there'd be some sort
We're
of
driving
like
along I-85. It might be a race for the governor's mansion in Georgia, but this
Renaissance.
is one that the entire country is watching.
because
In the red
people are like
state
realizing,
of Georgia,
oh, everyone's
where the
corrupt.
fish is fried and the tea is sweet,
Or at least,
politics are about
look,
as
look at
bare
them.
knuckle as it comes.
The DNC.
This is
See
a
that?
battle for the soul of our state.
Remember George Bush?
We have an
Remember him?
opponent who is an architect of voter suppression.
Okay, cool.
An
So you
historic
guys see what's
race in
happening
a
here.
dead
Nothing's
heat.
changing. Trump's in office now. There's still
Partly
wars
because of
overseas and
Stacey
shit.
Abrams,
And there's still shit going on here
44-year-old
too.
Democratic
It's
leader in the
unreal.
Georgia House.
What they
I'm
do?
Stacey Abrams, and I'm running for
They just
governor.
brainwash people.
Who, if elected,
So
would
us,
become the
like,
first black female governor
no,
of
she's
any
not
state
corrupt.
in U.S. history.
We want all
I
of
don't-
Georgia
I
to
don't
see
understand
themselves
this
reflected in my leadership. And yes, I'll be the first black woman to be a governor in the history of the United States.
Yeah, people are
But
too
what that
fucking
also means
focused
is that
on.
I'm
I'm the
opening the door
first
for the
green
next
man
person.
to just stand on one leg.
President Trump
What?
captured
Who
the
gives
state
a
by a
fuck?
little over
Are
5
you kidding
points.
me?
So here
Like,
it seems the prize is much more than a government
she's
title.
she's the
It just
first
may
black
be for the
one-legged
soul of
woman
the
with one
South,
arm.
Even as long-standing allegations of
And
voter suppression
she has a third
swirl.
eye.
The candidates themselves
Is she a jerk?
polar
Is she an
opposites.
asshole? Is she corrupt?
For
Well,
the
yeah, but she's the
Republicans,
first.
Trump
She's the
backed
first of
Brian
these
Kemp,
things. That's why we
Georgia's
need to
current
vote.
Secretary of State.
What is this?
I
Are
got
you
a
like
big
10?
truck. Just
No,
in case
10-year-old
I
have
need to
more
round up
sense.
criminal illegals
I
and take them
can't
home
believe
myself.
this.
Yep, I just
Fuck you.
said that.
Go back on this.
He's
What did he just say?
unapologetically conservative, a staunch Kemp, polar opposites.
Right here.
For the Republicans, Trump backed Brian Kemp, Georgia's current Secretary of State.
I got a big truck. Just in case I need to round up criminal illegals and take them home myself. Yep, I just said that.
He's unapologetically
Pause this.
conservative,
Please.
a staunch
Please.
supporter.
Okay, they know this. This is a parody.
You could say it was fine.
Of the Second Amendment, religious liberty legislation, and
This is
stricter
unreal.
immigration
This
laws.
guy's a dick.
We are building a red wall right here in the state of Georgia.
Look at him.
Abrams running unabashedly as a progressive,
I don't know who she is.
advocating for LGBTQ equality,
I've heard her
stricter
before.
gun control, and the expansion of Medicaid.
There hasn't been
she's
a Democratic
ignorant.
governor here in
Typical
more than 15 years.
thing.
But you, a black woman, progressive, can change
You
that?
a black woman progressive?
Because
Come on,
Georgia
are you a
has
good
changed over the
person?
last 20 years.
This is.
For her
I can't.
supporters, Abrams' candidacy is bigger
Just
than
repeat
her.
everything I said.
absolutely think Georgia's ready for a progressive Democrat. I mean, this
Make
is
racism
the
wrong
birthplace
again?
of civil rights.
Abrams has attracted major
Great.
star power
We need to vote for Stacey Abrams.
with celebrity endorsements from John Legend and Will Ferrell.
2 days.
Even Oprah is
Oh, fucking
campaigning with
Oprah?
her on Thursday, and former President Obama joining her later this week.
Oh, great. The war
Her
criminal.
opponent has used that to his advantage.
That is not Georgia values. That is values of California or New York.
You've had a lot of funding from outside sources. Are
Make
you running
empty,
a state campaign or a national?
dumb
We're running
arguments.
A locally grounded campaign that is nationally known.
People
We
can
have
see
more than
through when
5
you hire
times the number of
celebrities to do
individual donors
things,
from
and the
the
other
state
guys
who
are
are
just
giving
going
to
to
us.
use that
Brian
against
Kemp,
you.
a dad of 3 daughters, has gotten perhaps the only
And there's a
endorsement
large
he
chance it'll
needs
work.
from the commander-in-chief
Well,
himself.
makes me more-
President
These guys
Trump
want to see the
tweeted
little
recently
guy
that
in the
Kemp will
office.
be a
They
great
want to
governor
see,
and will campaign
oh, this guy's one of
for
us,
the election.
right?
That resonated
Now when you see
with Ted
celebrities
Badawi
backing
and
one
his daughter
person
Gianna
only,
at a Kemp
it's
campaign
like,
event here in Jessup, Georgia.
come on.
Why did you bring your daughter here today?
Well, we love Trump, and I've listened to some of the things that I've heard him say, and it's right along line with my conservative values.
That's all they're
Hey,
arguing.
how are you? Good to see you, Tony George.
His
Whoa,
campaign
whoa, whoa.
declined our request for a formal interview, so
is
we
this?
caught up with him at one of his events.
Pretty reliably conservative state. How can it be so tight when you're facing an admitted progressive?
Well, I think the race right now, you know, it's been a lot of
Probably not a
momentum on the
progressive.
Democrat side all around the country. The Republican base was just not real motivated. That changed
This is
a
unreal.
couple of weeks ago.
I am more
At the
astounded
heart
by
of this battle for
the
Georgia's
lack of.
future, what critics say is a blatant
I don't want to call it
attempt by
intelligence.
Republicans to
you know,
intimidate
because that-
voters
that's
of
too
color.
broad of a
Emmett
word.
Bondurant, a
Because
longtime
people
civil
going
rights
with
lawyer, says he's watched it happen for decades.
There is a history of voter suppression, not only here, but nationwide.
In fact, an AP report found 53,000 voter registration applications are on hold thanks to a so-called exact match law requiring applicants' information to exactly match other government records, so a misplaced hyphen or middle initial can stall an application and a vote. As Secretary of State, Kemp is the architect of that law, saying he's trying to prevent voter fraud.
You talked about all the votes. What about voter suppression? People are saying the minority votes.
That's a myth. That is a myth that the Democrats bring out every 2 years. We have a record number of people on our voting rolls.
But there's this detail. The majority of those 53,000 voter applications are overwhelmingly minority voters, voters who often choose Democrats. Most of those voters can still cast a ballot as long as they bring a photo ID to the polls.
So what do you say to those who say that you're trying to suppress the vote? What do you say?
Excuse us, we got to go. Numbers don't lie about that fact. Minority participation is up 23% in Georgia. 23%. That's what you should report. You not believe this BS about voter suppression.
Whether it's 5 people or 5,000 people or 50,000 people, his job
We're
is
not
to
fixing the
guarantee
problem.
that every Georgian who is eligible gets registered to vote. And instead, he has purged them.
Exact match doesn't just apply to registrations. There's also a signatures requirement, allowing officials to toss absentee ballots and applications if a signature doesn't match the one on file.
All I need to know is,
ACLU and other groups have
are you a
filed
British
lawsuits claiming hundreds of absentee ballots and applications were tossed. A judge halted that practice last week and Kemp appealed, calling absentee voting a privilege and a convenience. College student Lana Borgia was eager to cast her absentee ballot, especially as a Latina voter.
It's pretty exciting to have the opportunity to have a say in some big decisions for our state.
Her class and work schedule wouldn't allow her to make the hour drive to vote in person.
I've made sure to fill it out correctly and then sent it in, and then probably about 2 weeks after I sent it in is when I got notice that it had been rejected. I think votes like mine are ones that scare, Secretary Kemp.
She was told her signatures didn't match.
I wasn't given a process to fix my ballot or have it reinstated prior to the rejection.
Under the Voting Rights Act, states which had a history of voter disenfranchisement were monitored by the federal government. But a 2013 Supreme Court ruling undid that requirement.
And
You've been on this case for a long time. Do you feel like we're going backwards?
Oh, wait, is that Bush?
Both
he did that.
surprised and disappointed that we're going in the opposite direction.
Bring it back?
Of making it harder for people
But my
to vote.
team! A federal study looked at those southern states and examined 5 kinds of voter suppression tactics.
This wasn't
Georgia,
even 30
the study
years
says,
ago.
was the only state to have adopted all 5.
Mr. Kemp has created an atmosphere of fear around the right to vote in the state of Georgia.
Abrams calling on her opponent to step down, but Kemp is standing firm.
I took an oath of office to serve as Secretary of State, and that's exactly what I'm going to continue to do. I'm doing the exact same thing that Democrat Kathy Cox was doing when she was running for governor.
Their fate is now in the hands of voters.
He believes in the same values that I do. He's conservative, believes in the Second Amendment, lower taxes, and just believes in the same type of...
Guys, they say this every year to you.
Stacey Abrams
They say
represents
gun
the
rights,
future
they say
of
lower
Georgia. I wanna see if
taxes,
it's time for
they
women
say
and
less
people of
socialism,
color
more
to be
free market
empowered.
capitalism.
It's clear
Those aren't
Georgians
values, by
are
the
eager
way.
to decide the future of their
Unreal.
state.
They're not.
As long as that unalienable
If the other
right
team doesn't
to
have the
vote
arguments to
is
keep
not
up
taken
with
away.
that.
For
Just that
Nightline,
simple
I'm
thing.
Jenna
They don't have the
Roberts in
arguments to keep
Newnan,
up with
Georgia.
it.
A look at some of the most exciting races across the country
throw
during these
up all over
midterm
the place.
elections from my colleagues at Nightline. My thanks to
yeah.
all.
These guys know it
We are
too.
now getting very close to the time when polls
talk
will
a
be
certain
closing
way
across the country. And as
because
we
they
head into
consider
this
the
evening, I
audience
had a
to be
chance to
dumb
sit
as
down with
rocks.
3 of the smartest minds in politics
Well,
to
that
talk
and
about
it's
the big theme
you can't
as
be
we
too
head
specific.
into these midterms. Take a look.
It's by design. Why do you think? Oh, they all fucking talk the same.
All right, let's introduce the panel. Hey, guys. Thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. Starting with the person closest to me, it's Anna Marie Cox, who's been a political columnist for a long time and also is the host of the excellent podcast With Friends Like These. I say that not only because you've had me as a guest, but I do
Just want the
podcast.
results.
And I've also had you as a guest.
That's right. And yes, you also had me as a guest. Next to you, Mike Muse, Sirius XM host and political and pop culture commentator. Greetings, my friend.
Yes, I need to have you on my show.
Watch us probably
Anytime.
dismantle this.
Anytime. I'll talk to anybody. Sure, Michael
You talk to
Singleton
anybody.
is a
Could you
political
go back a
consultant,
little?
former deputy chief of staff at the Commentator, greetings, my friend.
Yes, I need to have you on my show as a guest.
Yeah, anytime. I'll talk to anybody. Sure, Michael
Who's this
Singleton
guy?
is a political consultant, former deputy chief of staff at the Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Talk to us.
Nattily dressed. So, a pleasure to be with all of you. Let's start with big picture. Anna, I'll start with you.
Can you imagine?
True or false? Is this? I mean, midterms are often historically hinge on local issues to some extent. Is this now a race that is nationalized and really is truly a referendum on Donald J. Trump?
I think it depends on which party you're paying attention to. I think the Republicans have tried to nationalize it. Trump himself has said, behave as though I'm on the ballot. Democrats, on the other hand, have really, I think, allowed their candidates to be a little bit more idiosyncratic as it relates to their districts. But it is also true that the excitement on the left would not exist if it weren't for Donald Trump. But they don't need to talk about it.
That's your problem.
I mean, we talk about it
There's your
enough,
problem.
I think. I mean, like, we're doing the nationalizing. We in the media are doing the nationalizing of the ballot on the left. And the right is doing it, I mean, the president is doing it on the right.
Michael, your view, as you look, as we head into this evening, what's your big picture sense?
My big picture sense is that we just don't know. I think I'm looking forward to the unpredictable. I think we're relying a lot on the polls and how
I don't
the
think
polls
things
are
are going to go
readjusting
the
themselves.
Democrats'
But
way.
I don't know how much the polls are
That's what I'm
accounting
here
for
for.
the
The smoke.
enthusiasm
I'm
of the
expecting
young vote.
riots.
And also to the enthusiasm of voters who really have
really
been
am
engaged in the
expecting
voting
riots and
process
shit.
previously. And to me, that is the X factor because we don't know if those individuals are Republicans. We don't know if
I just want to hear their
Democrats or
solutions.
liberals. We think that there is this nationalism, as Anna discussed, that is all anti-Trump. But there is an excitement on the Republican side because they are excited for all the deregulation.
You know what's exciting?
They are excited how he is talking.
You know what's
They do
exciting?
like some of the cultural warfare that he has really mentioned in the closing arguments of the campaign. And so there is excitement on both sides. And so I think it's really hard to quantify whose night is going to be.
That's why I have the Beto or
Dan
Rourke guy
Rather say back in
winning
the day that this race is going to be tight as a tick or something.
It's like, how are you going to stop immigration?
We are
He's
heading
like,
into a truly
well, we don't need a wall.
Sure, Michael, just give
We
us
don't need an armed
as we start
border,
out here, a big
military guys
thought,
with
your big
guns and
thought,
shit.
overarching thoughts as
We
we
need
head
to look
into
at the
the
problems
I
happening
think
in their countries
historically,
to why they want to come
it's on
here.
the side of Democrats. I mean, since 1932,
There's actually a little
the
more
party of the
detailed
president
answer.
typically loses seats with the
There's
exception
actually
of 3
something there,
times.
though.
So historically, Democrats have some
even if
type
he
of
doesn't,
precedent.
even if he
They're
doesn't
number
believe
one.
it,
However,
there's
number
still
two, when you
something
look at
more
the
there.
quantified data, Democrats had, I believe, a 12 or 13 point advantage about several months ago. That advantage is down.
Right now, these guys have empty arguments.
Gotta hear more than that.
Data you're looking at.
Yeah, but
has it down from 14
the other arguments I hear is
That's
just
right. That's right. So you look at that
in the
dance
House,
in the House. So the president
Join
has
our
been
vote
able to
blue.
make
Look
some
at my
type of an
dance.
argument
Because I hear a little bit
to
of something
increase
doesn't mean
enthusiasm on the right. So what I'm looking at as a strategist, the
Hey,
outlier
dude, what do you
is
think
by
about
what
this?
margin do Democrats take
Who are
back
you?
control of the House, and how does that margin propel them
Well,
beyond
you know, I
midterms
like
to
the
2020
fact you
as
wore
they try to
Nikes.
formulate a message to
Everyone else is
ultimately
wearing,
defeat Donald Trump if that can indeed happen?
I mean, we are.
He's looking good right now.
We should be very careful about
But he's wearing
conventional
a trench
wisdom, but the
coat. I don't know
conventional
what else
wisdom
he's got under
and the polling models say the odds are
And when he gets
that
in
the
there, he
Democrats
pulls
will
everything
take the
off.
House and the Republicans
we'll
will
find out.
retain
Wearing
the
Reeboks.
Senate. But in 2016, we learned that polls and pundits can be wrong. So how should we view this?
Incredibly, there's just so much unpredictable behavior happening right now. I mean, I think one thing we're seeing is that the 2018 electorate looks a little bit more like an on-year electorate than it does like an off-year electorate. We, in this country so far, for the past 30 years, we've had 2 different electorates. We've had an older, whiter one doing off-year elections, which is one of the ways that Republicans have won state houses and governorships across the country, is that that's the electorate that turns out to vote for local elections too. And then we've had an election every 4 years where young people, people of color, and women tend not to vote more, and we've had more moderate candidates, right? Even whether Democrat or Republican, I would point out. Trump changed the electorate to the right in 2016. A bunch of people, rural voters mainly, who had been felt disenfranchised. I should be very, very careful about whether or not they were actually disenfranchised, because that's an actual issue.
Yeah.
But people who felt disconnected from the system, they turned out to vote. In Minnesota, voter turnout in the red areas of Minnesota, which is basically anywhere that's not
Your home state, your adopted home.
my home adopted state, anywhere that's not the Twin Cities is red. They turned out in unprecedented numbers.
And they voted
They
against
didn't turn out like
Clinton
people are turning out right
as
now.
much
I mean,
as people
you guys
voted
have seen
for
the same
Trump.
numbers.
Exactly.
Let's be honest about it.
500% over 2014 for young people in Texas. 500%. 100%.
We're talking about early voting.
And I think that's what the outlier is that we've seen record numbers for early voting in ways that we haven't seen. And so what we're seeing is, yes, there could be an argument to be made about, there was this vote now because Kavanaugh has changed the trajectory of where we think the election is going to go, but yet still people are still passionate, though, about what they believe in. So I don't think this is a single issue referendum anymore. I think it varies wide-rangingly, and in particular in Texas. I think there is,
values means
the undercounting, right? In particular with our poll data. There is one perspective out there that says the Hispanic community are apprehensive of coming out to vote, or they're apprehensive in talking to polls.
Who told you this?
Well, I had a pollster on that really
morals?
represents that community.
My morality consists
general
of
pollsters do not know how to target the Latin American community, so therefore they're underrepresented in these polling data that's happening. You're seeing historic levels of enthusiasm. When you look at the Beto O'Rourke crowd at his rallies, the diversity that is there, the excitement of individuals who've never been there, and then students live there. Let's look at Prairie View A&M. They are fired up to have the opportunity to vote, and they're actually filing lawsuits in order to make sure that they have the right to vote, and that it's easy for them to vote. And so
say the word
this
values,
is something that's really different. This feels different. So I think we have to throw
that'll get
tradition out there.
He has the same
I think we have to show like predictive modeling and based on historical context. That's out the door.
We will learn a lot, and there's no question about it. Let's just talk about the issues that became most prominent in the closing argument. Sure, Michael, let me start with you. Democrats seem to be leaning very heavily on health care. Why is that from strategic standpoint?
Every single polling model that's out there indicates that healthcare is the #1 issue for every single voter, Republican or Democrat. And what's interesting to me is that a lot of Republicans are now beginning to shift the narrative to say, well, we are for preconditions when there hasn't been.
That's the thing. They keep the issue enough in the air to where it can actually create teams on this.
But we still do want to protect free
it's very popular, even
they never just go, well, healthcare is free for everybody. Because that would win instantly. It'd be overwhelmingly winning.
It's not as bad as we think, and I think that's something that will hurt Republicans. Not only
the guys north of us have free healthcare.
President Obama was in office.
The best argument against that, you have to wait in line. Like if your fucking heart is ripped out, you will get an emergency, you'll be taken care of. Cut your hand, you might have to wait a little longer.
I've talked to friends at the Republican
State Leadership
Committee, and they are extremely concerned about how this referendum
I'm willing, as Stephen Molyneux would say, I'm willing to go through this suffering so that we live in a better fucking world.
With the pre-existing condition narrative, Republicans got down to Florida.
You must let them suffer.
A lawsuit that tried to remove the pre-existing condition, but if you look at his political ad, it's so laughable.
You just told me the reason why I help so much because I'll feel better.
And now it's personal because he has a son who's been affected, and I'm just curious, where was that during the lawsuit?
Did he not say that?
Let's talk about what the Republican closing argument embodied in Donald Trump has been. It's been immigration. Why does and this is a question you hear a lot recently in the president.
I don't want to quote
when you have a roaring economy,
you're trying to fix my suffering.
Do you believe he's touting?
You know what?
No, you're trying to fix everything.
You just take him, right? Take him for now. Take him, right? See that closet over there? You just throw him in there.
Look at us in the media. What do
We
we
don't
like to
need
talk about?
that.
Do you guys
We
want
don't
to talk
need
about the economy?
people
Do you guys
that
want to
help
talk about
people
marginal tax rates right now?
yes, it makes me feel better. You don't. You do the right because it's the right thing to do. And you don't know what that is yet.
What about what
Hopefully you will one day. But right now, you can go over
I
there.
think he's uncomfortable talking about the economy. I just, maybe he realizes that it hasn't actually gone that great for his own voters, and he knows what's worked, right? He knows.
What about living wage?
Look at the
How about
Trump
that?
brand.
You guys
What he
can do
does
that.
is like takes things and puts his name on it, right? And then he just keeps putting his name on it. I think that's what he sees with immigration. I'm taking this. This is my brand. I'm going to just keep running with this. And also, I'm sure someone told him, because it's true, is that white women in suburbs.
They keep up this false fantasy of we can't afford that.
And I'm sure that someone in that office is like, please. Like maybe this is.
The economy is doing well, but there are
the economy's doing well, but there's poor people.
They asked participants, have you seen wages increase? They all, left or right, said no. The economy's doing great. I see this on television, but I don't feel it. #1. So that's why
The economy's doing great compared to these people over here. That's what what does great mean? What does that mean? I'm so against this whole thing. Both of them. I don't give a fuck, man. Both red and blue. It's a whole bunch of they're saying the same shit every year, seemingly, and they're just roping in people every year. I don't get it. Go out there and vote. Like, you know, the fuck is that gonna do? Anybody really that might make a difference is kind of non-existent from what I see. Oh my God. Finish the wall.
And it's working because when you look at some of those tight districts, Texas, Nevada, Arizona,
these people, man, I swear, on both sides, it's unreal.
They get mad when you call it Nevada, by the way.
It's like, when is the topic of actually helping people? Like, actually helping people. Because they could fucking help people. There could be a living wage.
I was checking the volume.
There could be, you know, free healthcare. There could be, we'll stop all the wars. We'll stop funding people. Funding people as in funding other countries or governments that hurt other people.
Oh yeah, a lot of the problems are problems we cause ourselves, and then we have to come up with the solution for the problem that we cause ourselves.
Shit, I mean, these two fuckers, right? These two teams, not these two guys. These guys are probably like dumb fucks anyway. These two like teams, the Republican Democrat thing, these imaginary political teams that are presented to us as like some sort of facade that we have a choice. Like, what are you talking about? And we do have a choice, you know? They don't, like, no one would have to put up with this if they just fucking look. You just gotta look. It's easy. You just look. I don't understand. You look out there and you look in here, and that's it. It's very simple.
Those should be obvious answers, right? If there's a homeless guy,
I can keep going.
If there's a homeless guy, you help him out, right? If I have a giant mansion, but I know there's a guy who's sleeping on the street, I helped a guy who's sleeping on the street. Seems like an obvious answer with that. That doesn't need much explanation. Now, what I think Republicans do is they play mental gymnastics, and then they finally like, well, how are you going to pay for that? How are you going to do that? If you help this guy, that means you're going to have to help everyone else out. And
that's right.
And they end up creating problems in order to say, no, our way is right.
No, it's like this fucking, what do you call it?
People were onto that during the Bush era, but they forgot about it now. Now they just say, bad Trump, bad orange man. We don't like you.
People try to both sides everything.
This, what's it called?
The argument's just not there.
What's it called? The debt? You know how fake that thing is?
Anywhere.
Guys, we're in debt.
Targeted at Republican voters to keep them from voting.
And then we add up we estimate the amount of money that's been used on warfare,
is for people to talk about
toppling other governments, regimes, and what have you. And here too, the money made here and exploiting people. Add that all up, but it's astronomical. Don't tell me we don't have enough. This is ridiculous. Like if that's me just using their own argument against them. And then they can't do shit.
Yeah, that's pretty out. Like when they say like defense spending, they're instantly like, we have enough money for that.
Defensive my contract.
And then some. They buy things. Some things they buy are like useless.
So we're defending the contract. I mean the people, not the contractors. Oops.
Like they'll upgrade models of planes that are only a year out of date. Like this plane's from last year, it's out of date. We need the brand new 2018 version, and they spend money on that. And the other one's just sitting in some fucking crate somewhere, not being used.
Or they sell it.
So it inflates the defense spending. But then they'll complain there is no money for free college or free health care.
Yes, there is.
Where are you going to get the money from? Like, well, we could stop bombing these areas, or we could stop having our flagpole posted in numerous countries around the world.
And this as well. This is getting a little philosophical, so there's no chance for them to ever come over here for this. Who's going to want to teach them for no money? Somebody who's Bliss is teaching. Now you can go sit down and go. Oh, how are they going to make a living? If everything is provided for them,
he's the Secretary of State, so he oversees.
You see how all this shit is just fake?
And you know their argument's going to run all the way back to, well, people need to suffer so they can learn things.
What you do? That's what you do with that. You get an axe, okay? He is chopped away. Suffer. What does that mean? What do you mean by that? Is it the right thing? Oh goodness! What do you think that is? When we get down to it, and he believes that helping other people is he'll do it because it benefits him. I'll feel bad if I don't, if I see them. And it hurts. It's like, what the fuck are you? Oh my God.
Nonetheless, the argument that, well, don't rich people suffer too?
There's all kinds of suffering.
You're not going to eliminate
everything. No. Right? There's probably a rich family out there. I'm just creating a scenario. It either is right now, or it has happened, or might happen in the future. Some rich family and someone might be getting abused, or some sort of tyranny's going on.
Well, we're not going to eliminate suffering, but
no,
we don't have to have people running around with chainsaws hacking each other to death, right? So that's not exactly, that's a poor argument to say, well, sometimes we need suffering, so the homeless man needs to learn how to get a job and work harder. It's like, well, suffering's going to exist regardless. So do we really need to have homeless people?
This isn't the right kind of suffering.
Do they need that lesson of life? Like, make money and forget about all your existential drives. Dreams? What are dreams? Get a job, asshole.
And I think under the presidency of Donald Trump, unfortunately, instead of walking forward, which we attempted to do,
we should do what is the right thing to do. I guarantee people will fall on their face. Hey man, wouldn't it be better if everyone had a living wage? Wouldn't it be better, right? Like, look.
Now people get lazy and have no drives. They just sit in their rooms all day. Except for the ethnically more intelligent race.
You guys will fizzle out.
They'll create our iPods.
Oh my God.
Remind me of the kinds of things that Michael Steele says.
If people are, like, here's the part of it tells people I really don't understand moral intelligence. And people who are going to do things because they like it. Like some people actually really enjoy. I'm sure engineering. Some people are like, yo, I want to design a new phone, dude. That shit's awesome. Or I'm gonna design shoes or clothes. No, those guys don't get it, man. That's why they're not happy. Okay, they don't get happy. You know what they think happiness is? I guarantee you this. It's basically this. Like, he understands my values. He's giving me tax cuts. That means I get that much more money. It's like, okay, you're lost, and so is that guy. How can you truly understand happiness if the way you explain it is some sort of self-serving? Because you can't have happiness without goodness.
Those communities for a lot of negative reasons, and as I again think about this
coming
up, I think about 2020.
This is an atrocity.
I'm always looking at data. I look at
I'd say you can't have happiness without you being there, and you within you contains the goodness or conscience or whatever.
Because I didn't go into depth on it.
And I'm beginning to see those numbers decrease.
Explaining it for any innocent bystander.
They have the comment box.
Running the Republican Party.
I think
enough of this. These fuckers don't.
Same issues you would talk to a white person about. African Americans and Hispanics care about jobs, they care about education, they care about upward mobility as far as economic.
All political terms, by the way.
Now, obviously, there are some more niche issues such as.
Like, what do they really care about? Oh, they want to be happy. They want freedom. They want to be comfortable.
I say we do new video.
Instead, they say jobs, jobs, jobs.
I say we do new video.
Community that Republicans haven't addressed enough, and I think Democrats have done a superlative job.
Why white voting is
we may not be a perfect party, but we recognize the critiques coming from
why the election results don't matter.
To address them, which you don't see coming from my side.
I think also we have to ask another
question
to follow up with that is what will make people of color comfortable even going
and I can definitely post that one. I will get people are going to see it. You know?
We have to go into culture, right? And there has been
we will be right back with more shilling.
Hearing what has come from our Oval Office in terms of
and just in case something.